take it home where you spread it around. If you don't like who's in there, vote them out. That's what election day is all about. And the biggest gun we got is called the ballot box. If you don't like who's in there, vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. And when they're gone, we'll sing and dance and shout. And she'll bring some new ones in, and they will start the show again. And if you don't like who's in there, vote them out.
From WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network, Virginia politics and the Dixie culture. We've had numerous reports from Virginia. Now we have the Attorney General there implicated, along with the governor in this, what all we can call is the masting. And the masting is actually about more than presenting oneself as something one is not. The governor there in Virginia, Northam, I hope I'm pronouncing his Northam, pronounce his name correctly, and also Henning, or is it Herning? The Attorney General said that he darkened his face. I believe he used the color brown. The governor said that in an event, a talent show, I guess he likes to go to talent shows, he blackened his face, but he denies the photo published first by a reactionary site he was actually in that photo. But he's been laying low lately and out of sight. And then unfortunately, which is not in the culture, but the lieutenant governor in Virginia, which is, I think, more a ceremonial post, Fairfax, is implicated in a situation involving a woman in 2004, I believe it was, during the convention in Boston. That they had a relationship, I suppose. They were kissing or whatever. And we'll read her statement in a minute. She is represented by the same law firm that represented Dr. Blasey out in California, that brought forth the allegation against the now Justice Kavanaugh. The difference here is Kavanaugh claimed the event never took place. There were some contradictory testimony, but the majority of the testimony and the, as one would say, the circumstantial evidence pointed to Dr. Blasey being correct, that Kavanaugh had been a bad boy. And as he said, he liked his beer. Typical fraternity house stunt from those of us from the old school that used to happen. His was a little newer, it was in the 80s. But nonetheless, he got onto the Supreme Court and the Me Too movement moved on. Now, we have a statement here, and I'll read his statement. Professor Dr. Hare, who is a psychologist and a sociologist. He used to edit a paper at the time called the Negro Digest. I read it. He was a scholar. He and his wife have published many books on the issue of African Americans. He was active at Howard University. In fact, he was banished from Howard University because of his activity. He was the man that taught Kwame Ture, who many Americans remember as Stokely Carmichael, the man that brought forward the term Black Power. He was not the first, but it came about at that time. So you can see right away that Dr. Hare is a man to be reckoned with. Let me just read his statement here. It's backfiring in Virginia faster than I anticipated. Stop the madness of the left and the right, not to mention the middle. Whatever happened to the golden rule? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Let the dead past bury its dead. And if you don't bring it up during these already costly elections. Professor Hare of San Francisco. Well, Professor Hare has a very good point, but unfortunately, in this type of polarized political atmosphere, they will bring it up. The right-wing site brought it up, obviously, for political purpose. The right wing obviously does not have a monopoly on this type of behavior. Their party leader, DJ Trump, has been implicated in all sorts of things, where in fact he talked about things, and he's being sued by Stormy Daniel. So thus, a situation of this nature is part and parcel of American politics. What is different here, Virginia, the place where old Robert E. Lee himself had his headquarters in Richmond, has a historic place in white supremacy, and no doubt about it. So thus this culture that they had has flourished there until this day. Have a higher, and we always put our respects properly to her. Was killed by white supremacists in Charlottesville, Virginia. But more than this, opportunists in Virginia have used this culture, the Dixie culture type situation, to as much as possible maintain their power. That includes anti-abortion legislation, other types of legislation. The Northam, a physician, had spoke out against some that opposed late-term abortion there in Virginia, and this sparked all of this uproar that came upon him. He first apologized for his action, then he took the apology back, and he's laying low. But let's go to the Virginia pilot, and we'll get the updated story here. We sort of got a few things together. The Washington Post, incidentally, has talked a lot about this particular incident. Let me see if I can find it here. I had Professor Hare up without... well, let me get this one out of the way here. This is from Rewrite, the timing of Virginia's Republican attack on late-term abortion care is not coincidental. This is from the Rewrite, written on the 5th of February. The campaign on late term comes months before Virginians vote to decide the control of the legislature. This is also out here. Republicans and anti-choice activists, which they are known as these days, last week seized on a Virginia state lawmaker's comments on late abortion care. We used to say late term, now so anyway. In a move, reproductive rights advocates call was designed to generate outrage ahead of the critical election. The representative, or delegate as they call him in Virginia, Cappy Tan, she's from Fairfax, the town, came on the fire after she misspoke about the bill, repeal, act, so forth. During a committee hearing, the measure would have loosened the state's restrictions around third trimester abortion. Same thing with Northam, by eliminating the requirement that the pregnant person be substantially and irredeemably harmed by continuing the pregnancy, and not allowing just one doctor to sign off on the procedure and allowing one doctor instead of three doctors. And the comment, if the bill would allow a pregnant person to request an abortion once she had a physician's signature that she's about to give birth, Trans reply, it would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make at that point. When pushed for an answer, she said her bill would allow it. Anyway, this is just that little tidbit here, and let me go to the Virginia pilot. Thought we would bring that in, and let me just check here and make sure where we are here with our lineup. Oops, not the right thing. Now this is, let me just make sure what we got. This is from Reuters. I will just set it up with a Reuters piece. Take a station break here. Deepening Virginia political crisis threatens Democrats' hold on governorship. This is from Richmond, Virginia. The Virginia political crisis shows no immediate sign of letting up. On Thursday, the governor there, Ralph Northam, and two fellow high-ranking Democrats faced the prospect of a Republican abruptly ascending to the pinnacle of state government in Richmond. The upheaval deepened on Wednesday when the Attorney General admitted to a blackface situation. This goes to Dixie culture. And Northam, he's a former Army physician. The following day, he admitted to wearing a blackface that was in presses dating back to the 19th century. Well, that was a nationwide situation. This guy Herring, he's 57, found himself also embroiled in a situation, and Justin Fairfax, we'll get to that situation in a minute. A little out of the Dixie culture here, but Justin Fairfax is the Attorney General of Virginia. So in other words, we've got some very interesting things all going at once, and no sign of abating here. That's about all we can say in terms of where this situation is going. Let me just do some housekeeping while we move along here and find and here we go. This is the Virginia politics. This is from the Virginia Pilot online series here. 5 days of scandal. Watch in Richmond with no word from Northam. Life goes on in the Capitol. This is from Richmond. It was the morning of his 29th birthday. Rob gets son set cross-legged with his art clipboard. The Virginia Commonwealth University graduate had a simple goal, painting the Capitol, but he had a twist of his own. Instead of its solid white vertical, Gibson painted with bright colors, yellow, blue, pink, etc. It was advice he once gave to an art teacher. I'm not sure. It's been a long few days in Richmond. The Friday night publishing of a let me just finish this up. His bright disposition stands in stark contrast to the move in the very same building. Oh, I understand. Okay, the Friday publishing of a racist picture from Ralph Northam's 1984, and this is the Dixie culture. Attracted widespread media attention, condemnation from the Democratic Party. This is what Professor Hare was talking about. And his successor, this is Justin Fairfax, became involved in his own scandal, which we'll get to. A separate rally planned in support of the Equal Rights Amendment was canceled because some thought it would be too insensitive at a time when discussions were focused on racism and sexual assault. The governor made no public appearance on Tuesday, the third straight day. Across the square, national media being staked out, no doubt, like vultures, waiting for a glimpse of Northam and Fairfax. I guess they know how to duck out of back doors. At the governor's mansion, the scene remained quiet throughout the day. A few sedans sat parked in the driveway. Reporters and producers sat in lawn chairs, so it's not bad that they can sit in lawn chairs. Anyway, protests have remained civil for the most part. Over the weekend, Capitol Police arrested 2 people for trespassing. That's a misdemeanor. They entered the Capitol Square without the proper permits. Well, that's not a big deal there. But we thought we'd bring you the local situation. Gibson's the art graduate, wonders if Northam would come out and explain the photo more. He also sympathized with the governor. Images, how successful is for him in there. He said image, yeah, no doubt about it. So image is one of the things they obviously think about. Let me go to old Hemming here, where he is. He's second in line to be the governor after Fairfax admitting dressed in blackface at a college party. The third scandal hit the Democrats. Mark Herring, Herrin, in a statement issued late in the morning, said he dressed in a brown makeup and a wig to imitate a rapper at as a 19-year-old at the University of Virginia. Herring is next in line to become governor. Both, of course, Northam and Fairfax have to beat it. His picture in the thing shows him well anyway, in a Ku Klux Klan robe and blackface. Fairfax is, of course, accused of a sexual situation in 2004. By Wednesday afternoon, the director of the state's Attorney General Association confirmed Hemming had stepped aside from his role as a co-chair of the association, the Democrat Attorney General Association. Not Hemming. A spokesman said in a text message the choice is made to focus on his responsibility in Virginia. I imagine so. It used to be called cover your ass. Anyway, like we have had to say too many times this week, racism has no place in Virginia. Dressing up in blackface is totally acceptable, no doubt about that, in these days and times. It was acceptable in the called the Dixie culture, which you still have alive in Virginia, especially in certain parts. Added Mark Herring the name to the list of Democrats who have lost the moral authority to govern. I'm not sure who. This is the Republican Party. I don't think they want to say that much about moral authority. It sounds ridiculous, even now writing it, but because of our ignorance and glib attitude, because we have not had an appreciation for the experience and perceptions of others, we dress up and put on wigs and brown makeup. This is from Mark Herring. I'm sure we have all done things at one time or another in our lives that showed a poor judgment, no doubt about that. But beyond blackface, brown face, green face, whatever makeup you put on, is the culture that you're in. And we now have in this nation, under the national administration, which politics have become nationalized, an administration pushing American first. Well, American first is, in fact, to many people, a black-faced mask or a masking of attitudes that were pervasive in Jim Crow or the apartheid America, and all too pervasive in the politics in the 60s, and it brought Tricky Dick to Richard Nixon to power in 1968. And then that history came back of that culture. Reagan played to it, Ronald Reagan, to the Dixie culture, and it put him in office for 8 years. And then we had in 1988, under the campaign that George H.W. Bush won over our own Michael Dukakis, William Horton of Boston, and he was laid out as Willie Horton. That was the same thing as the blackface mask, no doubt about that. The African-American criminal being out there, and that he was out on a furlough and raped a woman. Same old situation there. He added that the shame of the moment has haunted me for decades, and though my disclosure of it now pains me immensely, what I am feeling is in no way compared to the behavior, the shock, and the deep pain that Virginians of color may be feeling. And this is where he made a mistake. He used the word may be feeling. Hell, they are feeling that. Admission came after a week. This photo of Northam and his East Virginia medical school yearbook had surfaced. They had to literally abandon that period. Herring joins the chorus of calls for Northam's record. Yeah, you see nothing to be quiet about that one. Herring first told the Virginia Black Caucus about the incident the morning the lawmakers left for Democratic caucus meeting. Well, Delegate Lamont Bagby, the head of the Black Caucus in Virginia, hailed as a group reported through the Capitol Hall, as a group reported following him. He didn't stop to answer any questions. I imagine not. And let me see what else we can get here. The Senate Majority Leader, Tommy Northam, had no made no explicit mention of Herring's admission, but he wrote that Senate Republicans are focusing our energies on completing our work on the budget, providing tax relief for working families, and making health care more affordable. Well, they can do that by extending Medicaid. Now, what else has it got here? A woman has claimed, Fairfax sexually assaulted her. That was in Boston in 2004. In a statement, Harrison said he intends to work to address the racial inequalities and systematic racism that we know exist in our criminal justice system. Well, he has a full task ahead of him in our election process and in our institutions of power. He listed efforts he's undertaken to change the criminal justice system, such as pushing to get rid of cash bail. Well, if he can do that. See, sometimes out of these situations does come, if we go back to dialectics, something that is positive. That I have contributed to the pain Virginians have felt this week is the greatest shame I've ever felt, he said. In the days ahead, honest conversation and discussion will make it clear whether I can and should continue to serve as Attorney General, but no matter where we go from here, I will say that from the bottom of my heart, I'm deeply, deeply sorry for the pain that this revelation has caused. Well, that's a start there. Rewording of some things here is very good for where we are. Now, Justin Fairfax, somewhere I have the statement here, denies the reports NBC that he used profanity to describe his accuser. Oh, this is something new. I hadn't seen this one before. It denied Wednesday media report that he used an expletive to describe the woman who accused him of sexual assault. A report from NBC. Chief of Staff and Politics, that the governor used the F word to refer to the situation, but despite that, he used the B word. Wait a minute, hold on. That disputes where we use the B word. That's for any heated language directed towards Vanessa Tyson. And we all know what the B word is. Bitch. Anyway, he denied that he assaulted the woman, calling the accusation a smear and collaborated. Anyway, the Washington Post first didn't publish her story. We're not sure about that. They said it wasn't credible at the time, but these are editorial decisions, and those editorial decisions many times are made in the interest of the Washington Post. Addie McClure was at the morning conference. That's the policy director. Adley, sorry about that. I guess that's A-D. Anyway, said he did not use the word. You know you have to, and he wouldn't have used the word, at least not at the conference. McClure did say he used the F word during a meeting, but not in the context as described by NBC. One of the things that happens these days, anything that you do will hit you, no doubt about that. So you can kind of just forget about it. Okay, we did that, and I'm going to get to her, and maybe it's here somewhere. Nope. It's a PDF, and it's not here. So I'm going to have to find it, but we're going to have to go to the Washington Post, and let's see if we can conjure it up here. Wait a minute. Let's do, while I find this, to Wright State, that is in Ohio, university there. The faculty is on strike, and 30 students participate in a solidarity situation there. Wright State is on 16-day faculty strike. I believe there are over 500 people out there. Signs that were written for 4 demands. One asked the administration allow faculty union to strike for health care. A second asked the university board of trustees to resign so individuals who have an education background can take over. A third demand reimburse students for time missed because they are not getting their time. They've let some scabs in there to teach, but a lot of classes obviously had to be canceled, and you don't have your professors, and you've already paid for this. And this is something the university has done. We'll cover this more on Friday Jobber. And let me just see if we can. No. Okay. Anyway, we'll get this in a second here from the Washington Post itself. I wanted to at least read a little from the PDF provided here. They have a link to it. And I had previously read the link. And here's poor old Fairfax here. This is Virginia Lieutenant Governors. This is in 2004 sexual assault here on Tyson. And if well, and he denied it, but I was trying to find her, obviously he would deny it, find her actual complaint, and we may have to put it up there. Yeah, Democrats are, no doubt, treading cautiously on this one, because this is one of these things, as Professor Hare brilliantly pointed out, could come back to, as they say, get one. And with Fairfax here, it's not written how something of this nature would actually come out. And let me just a second here. Democrats rally. Oh, that's Christine Blasey Ford. I call her Blasey. Yeah, no doubt about that. This is one of those things. Well, she's at Claremont College, is where she is. Dr. Tyson. She's a tenured professor at, in Claremont, California, Scripps College, a very good college, incidentally. And when you're trying to find something, you don't find it as you would hope to do. Dr. Blasey Ford and the article here, incidentally, is Democrats rallying around Christine Blasey Ford. Will they do the same for Vanessa? Did I call her Virginia? Vanessa Tyson. Well, the situation here is a little different in that. This is verified. Fairbanks has said, oh, okay. Oh, oh, this is Vanessa Tyson. Oh, nice looking one. Anyway, I didn't know who Vanessa Tyson was, but now we know. I took a picture of her there. Let me just see if the headlines: the professor accuses Fairfax of what has actually went on here, and we don't have it. Anyway, let me just check a station break here and try one more time. WBRN Radio. Well, we'll find her statement, or we'll append it to this broadcast, our Friday Jobber. Let me just do the sports here, and we'll move on. In college hoops last night, Nevada was at Colorado State. Nevada 98-82. In overtime, Creighton out of Omaha, Nebraska was at Villanova. Villanova 66-59. Sounds almost like a professional score. And Wisconsin was at Minnesota. Carla's son went there. Anyway, or son and wife, I should say. 56-52. Well, they didn't need to make the drive from Wisconsin, evidently. In overtime, LSU and Mississippi State. It was LSU 92-88, and Maryland and Nebraska. Maryland 60-45 for Nebraska. In the NBA, professional basketball, we had the Nuggets were at the Mavericks. Wait a minute, hold on. The Nuggets were at the Nets in New York. 135-130 Nets. The Pelicans were at the Bulls in Chicago. Pelicans 125-120. The Wizards were in Milwaukee. Bucks 148-129. The Hornets were at the Mavericks in Dallas. Mavericks 99-93. The Sun was at the Jazz. Jazz 116-88. The Rockets were at the Kings. It was the Rockets 127-101. And finally, the Spurs at the Warriors. The Warriors 141-102. Didn't get very close there. And in the hockey, we had the Senators at the Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs 5-4, and the Bruins were at the Rangers. It was 4-3 was the final score there. And let's see. Oh, this is a Reuters story here, the deepening crisis. I would just see if they had this, and we don't see it. Anyway, we got Wayne State in there. We'll see you on Friday Jobber tomorrow night. And, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. Friday night. Sorry about that. This is, I'll get it right in a minute. Thursday morning. This is Thursday morning. It'll be Friday morning, Friday Jobber. Then we had the Week with Woz. That's on Saturday morning. And we don't know what will happen on Sunday around here. We're still working on the open source report. And numbers, man, that's how macroeconomics programs always somewhere on the weekend stuck in there. More, of course, obviously, economic news. And on the Week with Woz, we'll look back at the State of the Union. Incidentally, we did a program on the State of the Union called the Stateless Union, where we had a commentary from several sources, including the response by Stacey Abrams, the gubernatorial candidate from the state of Georgia, and our own Bernie Sanders. And then we had the workers' response from John Bechtel. He is the chair of the CPUSA.